Hi, everyone. We're getting up here. I'm seeing so many friends like it. I'm just taking my time getting to stage because it's so fun to see all these friendly faces. I'm really excited to do this panel with Manu and Lindsay. I was just saying to them that I've been asked to do a lot of AI panels lately, and I get it. Like, you want, like, a female, and then I hit like 2 boxes, so like, but I'm just really glad to have some other names I can throw out because I'm not always the expert on things. But my name is Sunny Washington. I'm the co-founder of Seer AI. What we do is we are using, we have basically our own language model that understands legislation and policy. And we've been deploying this tool throughout 50 states so that people can understand what policies may impact their businesses in a good way or a bad way. I'm going to give these ladies a second to introduce themselves and what they do, and then we'll jump right into questions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Manu Sood, and I lead cloud engineering teams for Avid Exchange. So we are really at the forefront of bringing cloud and AI together at Avid, and what it means to the business, what it means for our customers, as well as our teammates that work for us.
And I'm Lindsay Zulaga. I'm the chief data scientist at HireVue. HireVue is a Utah company. We build software to help companies hire. So things like video interviews, assessments, virtual job tryouts, coding challenges, scheduling in-person interviews, a lot of different tools. And I am, I'm over the data science and BI team, so kind of involved with all things data, including policy and regulation and all that.
Great. Okay, raise your hand if you have used ChatGPT. Keep your hand raised if you use it once a week. Keep your hand raised if you use it every day. Okay, interesting. They say that only 24% of adults have used ChatGPT, which it's really hard because I'm on it all the time. But we are hitting this place right now where everything is AI, and there's so much excitement about AI. It's the new Dogecoin or whatever. Just kidding, it's not. This is legit. I think it's a really exciting time for me. I've spent 20 plus years working in tech and building startups, and I see it as like this huge inflection point. People say it's a printing press moment, but none of us were alive when the printing press was there. Is it the iPhone moment, where all of a sudden you had a computer in your pocket? I don't know. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's probably a printing press moment, and I talk about that a lot because I think that story ties into the kind of the fear and the excitement, and how there's been so many times in history that we thought, oh, the newest technology is going to destroy everything, and that hasn't happened yet, but things do change quite a bit, and we're seeing that change. I think, like, for me, it's just exciting that more people can create things. So I said this years ago, like, I wish I could just tell. I even as a technical person, sometimes coding is frustrating because you're like, oh, I know exactly what I want this to do, and I don't know how to put it in this language. Can I just say it in natural language? And I remember some of my colleagues being like, no, that wouldn't work. Now I'm like, here it is. People are creating things that aren't technical. They can kind of make what they can dream up, and I think that's a really exciting part of it.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think if you think about AI, right, the advancements in natural language processing has removed that entry barrier for non-technical folks to begin experimenting with AI, begin having fun, create things, right? Whether you're using ChatGPT or another GPT or another tool, the power is in your hands. You can have fun, you can learn, grow, go. I also think in many industries, there's a big opportunity to improve productivity working the human with the machine, right? It almost gives you that augmentation that you have the possibility to do so much more. I'm sure each one of you has said that I don't have enough time in my day to do all the work that's on my to-do list. But think about AI being able to accelerate that by 60% or by 70%. And now you can get so much more done. And the satisfaction that we all get from striking off things from our to-do list. It's real.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because when I first took my co-founder up to the Capitol to just watch how like lobbyists and policy workers do their job, he's like, geez, I feel like if I created a copy and paste button, that would be like a huge innovation for this group. And it just made me realize that if you think your job is cutting and pasting a field into another database, then I think we've lost the plot. There's so many great things that AI can do for us that we're typically manual and heavy, time-oriented type things. But I think there's an opportunity for us to think of how AI will allow us to be more human, how we can have more connections and time to talk to customers or to our coworkers or to our stakeholders that AI can't do. And so I think it in that standpoint, I don't think it's Skynet, I don't think it's Terminator yet, but I think like there is this real opportunity for us to expand what our human capabilities are by automating some of these things. But Lindsay, I think everybody always gets worried about, is this going to take my job? I did a journalist conference, and they went from AI can't do everything to then like asking questions if AI could do this, and I was like, no, that's your job, So they wanted us to do everything. How do you see that being in at higher view and how the workforce is changing?
Yeah, I think so. There are kind of two areas. There's individually how the skills that you'll need to survive in this world, and kind of and how that changes and how it's changing more quickly. So we are automating more things. There's a fear that can go so fast that we can't keep up. I kind of tend to be more optimistic that the pace with which we can keep up is kind of going to be the speed limit. But when we think about where AI is going, it's unpredictable, kind of. So there's kind of making sure you understand it and know how to use it. It's not too late, but starting to be able to use ChatGPT and kind of understand where it makes mistakes. Things like that are all very valuable skills to have. And then also focusing on what's uniquely human, and what's uniquely human may change, like you said. Like we one time may say this is something that is not in the realm of AI, but in 5 or 10 years it is. But I think there's a lot of things that are obvious, like relationship management, or things that we know humans are good at and value a lot, and to focus on those things. I think a lot about too just how AI is going to help us evolve in this ever-changing world of work. So there's not just the AI skills you'll need, but there's just understanding skills and how they transfer from one job to another. So jobs are changing faster than ever, and that's going to keep going. A lot of jobs will be automated, but a lot of new jobs will be created, and there will be, a lot of college freshmen right now will have a job you've never heard of. So how do you hire for a job that you've never heard of? Because the way it used to work is you just look back at what we call like rear view recruiting, just find someone who's already done this job. Well, no one's done the job yet. So how do we know who's a good fit for this job? And it's going to be through understanding skills and competencies. And I think large language models are already showing to be really valuable to structure a lot of that data in a way that humans have been struggling for decades to understand skills ontologies, and new skills come on the scene, and how are they related, how are they transferable, so you can kind of come up with good career paths for people to change and grow in the new world.
Yeah, Manu, let's take the standpoint, like, how does an organization then, a company that prepares for AI, not only just the workforce, but like the tools that you're building, and how have you been able to kind of incorporate AI into that strategy?
Yeah, so very relevant question, Sunny. I think if you think about AI and what it has done and how it has integrated into our day-to-day work, I saw the number of hands that went up using AI weekly, using AI daily. I personally use it multiple times in a day. I think both individuals and organizations have to take a proactive stance about learning and embracing AI. These type of tech disruptions happen in the tech industry so often. It was the mobile era, it was the cloud era, and with every time something changes, there was a fear that my job's gonna go away. But if anything, the jobs in technology have gone up like a hockey stick, skyrocketed. So I think when I think about individuals, right, you have to invest in your own learning and being adaptable to the change. There are certain skills that are transferable, even if you look at technology skills, right? Let's say an accountant as an example, maybe working with spreadsheets, numbers, doing a bunch of reports, and you could say that, hey, a ChatGPT model or a GPT could do that work in the future. But all of that data analysis is transferable to you becoming a data science person. So what are your transferable skills that you can take with you? How do you embrace your learning? And how do you embrace the culture or this continuous lifelong learner mindset that's going to serve you well? Not just the tech skills, but even focus on soft skills, like your cognitive abilities to lead and work with people. AI is not going to be able to do that, at least not for a very long time. So that's your secret sauce, your special skill that's going to help you stay relevant. Now, if we think about organizations, right, it starts from leadership at the top. They have to be able to embrace this AI movement. They have to know that AI can be a complement to providing them the competitive advantage and how they're going to augment their skills in their teams by use of AI. And if there are jobs that could potentially get disrupted by the pervasive AI, then how do they redeploy that workforce through training, upskilling, reskilling? And we've all heard this, that some jobs are going to get displaced, but the jobs of tomorrow are not yet even created. I read somewhere that by 2025, 95 million new jobs will be created. That's like mind-blowing. So there's going to be more jobs that we can go after. So organizations have to stay at the forefront of it, and at the same time, right, be very transparent about setting policies, standards, and governance frameworks so that they can, one, help the employee navigate through this change, and two, also let them be aware of the potential risks of not thinking through the risks of not using AI in a responsible manner. We've all heard about bias. We've all heard about privacy, security, and just being intentional with the use and deployment of AI.
Thank you. That's really insightful. Okay, so we'll make this a quick question for all of us. What is the one industry that you think will have the most significant transformations due to AI? I'm going to say government. So they're still using WordPerfect at the Capitol, just FYI. So I think that's an easy one. What about you, Manu?
I think from my perspective, I think of healthcare as an industry that's going to see a lot of integration of AI in patient care, monitoring machines that take patient vitals, how we're looking at mass data and learning about diseases, diagnosing diseases, and just the prevention of it. So I think there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. We just have to get cleaner data. I think there's just a huge challenge, and that's why it hasn't really come to fruition quite yet, is the data is messy, but we'll collect more data through sensors, and I'm really optimistic. It still happens all the time that people go to the doctor and find out they had something they didn't know they had, and that should be a thing of the past, I think, in the next several decades.
Yeah. So, Lindsay, what ethical considerations should businesses think about as they're thinking about AI being embedded into the workplace, especially with privacy, employment, and decision-making? I mean, you help with hiring decisions, so it's highly, it's high risk and high stakes for a lot of people. So how do you guys think about that?
Yeah, from really early on, we got pushed to think about this a lot, right? Because we were pioneers in using AI in hiring, and it freaks people out, right? So at the beginning, we kind of kept our IP close to the vest, and then we realized that if we don't tell people exactly what's going on here, they assume the worst. They assume we're doing something like hiring based on skin color or something. So transparency from pretty early on became part of our practice, and I think now we're seeing that codified a lot more into law. Obviously, there's a lot of data privacy law, and that's kind of branching out into more AI law, like globally. It is really difficult to regulate AI. What is that? It's like regulate technology. I mean, I think it's going to have to be use case specific. And there are things we've seen, for example, like there is a New York City AI hiring law that's specific to hiring. And even then, it's like people that write the laws may not work in the industry and understand.
I have seen some terrible definitions of AI in state legislation.
Yes, even what is it? Yeah. And things like you should never have anyone's demographic data ever. And we're like, oh, that's how we make sure the algorithms are fair, right? So there's a conversation between vendors and people who use the technology and lawmakers to figure out what makes sense here. But I think, a lot of countries and companies and states are coming out with frameworks and guidelines, and there's always a new one, and I'm always like, I should read these. But they're all pretty similar, actually, which I think is a good sign that we're kind of circling around the same ideas. Things like transparency, explainability, disclosure to people. Hey, AI is going to be used on you, and here's how it works. And if you feel like you have a disability that's going to affect how that works on you, or you want to opt out of this experience, here's an alternate route. You have recourse to understand what happened. Hiring is interesting because most people don't get the job. Like 100 people or 200 people apply for one job, and people often assume I didn't get the job because of AI. And usually, it's just a numbers game. It's not very likely. So making people feel comfortable has been a big part of our journey, and helping them understand when AI is used, exactly what it's doing, how we train the algorithms, how we get the data, and all that. I think it's just becoming really commonplace to do that. And skeptics and reporters and academics, all those people pushed in that direction, and it's had a good effect.
Manu, so how do you think then education systems evolve around AI? I worked in ed tech for a lot of years, and I remember when they first put computers in the classroom, and I had to tell teachers no, you should put your grade book on a computer, not on your handwrite it. And that was it took a long time. I mean, they were really expensive dust collectors. So, and at the rate that AI is moving, how should education think about it?
Yeah, very interesting, right? I touched on the number of new jobs that are getting created as a result of AI, so we have to strengthen the talent pipeline early on from elementary schools all the way to higher ed, right? So there has to be curriculum integration for AI to be taught to elementary schoolers all the way up to higher ed, obviously tailored for the age groups. But then also, as you get into these higher ed fields around healthcare, financial services, creativity, computer science, preparing the students to be able to work alongside of the AI, because that's the AI augmented workplace that they're going to get after they leave the schools. The other thing I also keep thinking about is, which you touched on, is educating the educator, right? Because it, again, starts from the very top down. They have to be able to embrace this disruption, which has happened, and it's mainstream right now. And then how do those educators create policies to implement technology in the classroom? I was reading somewhere that most education institutes spend somewhere between 6 to 8% of their budget on technology. That's really low, right? 6 to 8%. Think about how much more can they do if they deploy technology in the classrooms. It could be personalized learning for the students. It could be meeting the student where they are. Although I do sometimes also think that we have to deploy AI in learning carefully too, because you don't want to leave someone behind because of the digital divide, which we know exists. Not everyone has access to internet, computers, AI tools, and platforms. So it has to be intentional to make sure that everyone can have access, and that the tooling and the platforms in education are not creating the bias that we are all very aware of.
So speaking of bias, and this is our last question, and I'll give you guys each 30 seconds to respond to this. What can AI do to help enhance all this effort we've been making in inclusivity and diversity? How do we think about what the potential risk or the challenges will be? How do you guys think that in your respective roles?
Only 30 seconds, okay. It's gonna be hard.
Just find us
one
an
thing,
easy
One thing
answer.
I'll say, though, is that I think the most important point about this is AI is a really powerful tool. It can be used for good or bad, right? So heard the stories, seen the headlines of bias, especially in hiring. People are biased, so AI is just mimicking that bias. You have to be really careful about that. But there are ways to do that, and there are mathematical ways to optimize the algorithm with bias as a part of that optimization. So we want you to predict this outcome really well, but at the same time, satisfy these other requirements as far as discrimination goes. So there's a lot of promise there as well. We just published a paper last year in an academic journal about this, so I could talk for a lot longer than 30 seconds, but just to know that, that people are thinking about it really deeply, and a lot of academics are studying that as well.
That's great.
Yeah, I think in addition to hiring and recruiting, right, there's performance assessments. We all go through annual appraisals, and we all feel like we were given a rating that we probably deserve better than that. So how can you leverage AI in performance assessment, in development of your teams, so that, access to opportunities of promotion within the company are available to everyone equally through appropriate learning that will help them bridge the gap of the skills that are needed. We also are leveraging AI for employee engagement survey results. So we get a ton of data that we are then using AI to understand the sentiment of the teammate sentiment, and then deploy strategies to address those sentiments so teams can feel like they have a place where they can belong and they can thrive.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the expertise that you each brought to this. I think overall, it's an exciting time. So let's lean in. Let's not do anything dumb with AI, like get a AI girlfriend or boyfriend or something like that. But I think there's an incredible time to build amazing tools, and I have never been more excited to build a tech company in this environment than I am now. So thank you.
Thanks. Can I leave you? I'm going to leave you all with a staggering number that I read, that the gender gap in AI is real. Women are engaging much less with AI than their male counterparts. So I give you a challenge to go home or go back to your desk and do something to learn AI and incorporate it in your daily work. Thank you all.
Thank you.